Birds of Prey has had a tough time at the box office, but that's not what I'm here to talk about. Birds of Prey is essentially a standalone Harley Quinn movie, and in this versus video, we are going to compare it to its heavily studio-influenced counterpart, Suicide Squad. Let the battle commence. The story for Suicide Squad continues right after Batman vs Superman. After Superman's death, Amanda Waller proposes that they need to be prepared if another being like Superman comes to Earth. So she proposes that they capture all these high-status criminals so they can defend us against that threat if or when it happens. However, one of the villains she recruits goes rogue and attempts to take over the whole world. So essentially, to prevent the apocalypse, Amanda Waller assembled a team of villains, and in doing so, she has now caused the apocalypse.
Oh, whoops. Whoopsie.
And the story for Birds of Prey takes place some time after Suicide Squad. Harley dumps the Joker, and as a result, all the criminals that she has pissed off over the years now have free reign to get their revenge on her, seeing that she is no longer under the Joker's protection. One of those people being Roman Sionis, aka Black Mask. He captures her, and right when he is about to kill her, Harley makes a deal with him and says that she will retrieve a diamond that he has lost. So Harley is on a mission to retrieve the diamond, and the Birds of Prey are somewhere in there too. Now, from a logical point of view, the story and structure for Suicide Squad makes no sense. Right from the beginning, the infamous editing that this movie is known for comes in, and this stylistic choice doesn't help the film's pacing at all. What should be entire character arcs are just reduced to choppily edited music videos, complete with over-stylized rainbow colors, pop songs, and scenes that you can so easily tell have been brutally cut. And then there are other scenes where this choppy editing is used as a way to transition to the same scene just 2 seconds later, and it ruins the natural structure of the scene as a result. It constantly feels like you're watching a movie where every so often someone takes the remote control and slows the movie down, skips a few seconds, and then hits the fast forward button. There is no flow or structure, and if anything, it feels like we are just glossing over important scenes that we would have seen if the movie wasn't edited by a monkey. So the story, pace, and structure of Suicide Squad is an inconsistent mess. As for the pace and structure of Birds of Prey, a lot of this movie is being told to us by Harley, and very much like the first Deadpool movie, she often narrates the story to us, goes back in time to give us a little backstory, and then says to us, there, now you're all caught up. And I like this idea in concept, and the movie did actually pull it off really quite well at times, but the problem, however, comes about when Harley starts to go back in time again and again. Whereas with Deadpool, the flashbacks were all just one consistent past story being told, in Birds of Prey, we are being told all of Harley's past stories in a completely random order, and it becomes a bit confusing to put them into perspective with the actual story in the present. Now, from one perspective, this actually works to the film's benefit, as it is giving us a look inside of Harley's head, which is very disorganized and all over the place. But on the other hand, it can be disorganized, but we, the audience, should still be able to follow the story like normal. And although I can see what the movie is going for, I don't think it executed this storytelling device very well at all. I think they needed to give these flashbacks a rewrite and allow them to blend in with the main story a lot more, because as is, they just feel incoherent and jumbled, and they don't work anywhere near as well as the cutbacks to past and present like Deadpool, or even Batman Begins for that matter. But that being said, the movie did have much better editing than Suicide Squad did, and I did feel more engaged with the story for this movie than I did Suicide Squad, especially the part of the story where the criminals are all trying to get their revenge on Harley, seeing as she is no longer under the Joker's protection. That is such an ingenious plot point, and I thought it was so creative. But after a while, the movie sort of abandons it in favor of focusing on Harley protecting this girl from Black Mask. Now, you know what I like and dislike with the story for Birds of Prey, but is there anything I liked about the story for Suicide Squad? Well, I do like the idea that as we are going through the introductions of the villains, we see how they were caught by different heroes, and there was some fun in seeing that. It could have been done better, mind you, but the idea was fun, and the execution was okay in the movie. But aside from that, I don't really have any other compliments I can give the story to Suicide Squad. Even tonally, you can tell the movie has been dragged through the mud with the studio interfering with the production after the criticisms they got with Batman vs Superman, and it shows a lot. And in general, the tone of Suicide Squad feels inconsistent. The tone for Birds of Prey, however, is a lot more goofy, and although it's not for everyone, I thought it did a good job of maintaining its goofiness whilst also switching to the darker scenes relatively well, and it certainly did it more convincingly than Suicide Squad. So the movie with the superior story and pacing is Birds of Prey. Now, something that I found really interesting, but not surprising about the casting of Birds of Prey is that even though Joker's shadow is clearly following this movie, he is absolutely nowhere to be found. They had so many perfect opportunities to make Jared Leto's Joker cameo in this movie, and they never used him even once. Even in the opening of the movie, where Harley tells us her backstory with some cartoon visuals, when the part about Joker comes up, the animation is not even modeled to look like Jared Leto's Joker. That's how much the studio didn't want to acknowledge him. The only time they do show his image is when Harley has a picture of him on the wall which she throws her knives at. You can tell the studio is really trying to bury the fact that Jared Leto's Joker ever existed, and I can't be more grateful. Although Harley does say during the opening scene that she came up with all the smart ideas and Joker always took the credit for it and she just said nothing. Anyone who knows these characters know that's not true. Harley can be smart, but she's not an intelligent schemer like Joker. That's not what her character is about. She has her moments, but it's not something she regularly does like Joker. And men taking all the credit for women's ideas is 100% a common theme in this movie. And another common theme in this movie is that all men are evil. Anytime you think you come across a half-decent male character, shortly after you find that they have no moral center and are just selfish and misogynist. And yet, why are men being called sexist for not seeing this movie, even though this movie is being sexist towards them? And by the way, statistics have shown that more men went to see this movie than women did. Anyway, I thought Margot Robbie's performance as Harley Quinn was great. She really does come across as a live-action Harley Quinn. Now yes, the writing could definitely be improved, as I thought there were a lot of things she said that weren't that funny, but whenever she was saying her lines or acting out some of Harley's mannerisms, I thought she did a very good job. As for the rest of the characters, I thought Black Canary was a lot better than I thought she was gonna be. That being said, I think they should not have used her. All of the characters in this movie do not have powers. She is the only one that does, and she decides to use them at the last minute for some reason, and you can't help but wonder, why didn't you use your powers before? So in this particular movie, I think they made a wrong choice bringing someone in with superpowers, as it just introduces a rather annoying plot hole. The best character of the group is Huntress. She has a backstory which I thought was really darn cool and dark, and it was arguably a better story than anything we got in this film, but we hardly get to see any of it. Now, she had some rather funny moments in the movie, and I did find them a little funny, but for a character that on paper is so cool, she ended up being so forgettable. She really did not leave any lasting impression on me, and her arc was over as soon as it started. And the final character of the team is Cassandra Cain. Now, there are a lot of people that hate this character in Birds of Prey, and that did surprise me, because I didn't like her, but I didn't hate her either. She was a plot device, and she did what she needed to do, so I don't really have much to say about her. I do question why Harley is so fond of her though. She would usually be friends with someone like Poison Ivy, not this little twerp. But even so, I didn't hate the character of Cassandra Cain. Who I didn't like though, at all, was Montoya. Montoya is a detective, and she didn't even fit with the group. All of these are younger people who have had training and are able to fight and kick butt, but then you see Montoya, and she seems much less capable of fighting on their level, so you genuinely start thinking, what are you even gonna contribute to this team? They can take all of these guys out without you. You really don't make a difference in the matter. Yet, at the end of the movie, she actually becomes a part of the Birds of Prey, and I didn't buy that at all. She genuinely felt like a waste of space in this movie. Screen time is already incredibly limited with other characters, and yet the film tried to give Montoya a storyline and character development, and it spits in the face of everything her character stood for in the comics and the animated series, and it made a victim out of her just to, again, push an agenda into this movie. And if she got cut, then this movie would be no different, and it would have had time to spend on more important things. When Harley kicked her out of the window, I was really hoping that she died, because I really couldn't stand her, but she didn't. She came back. And not to mention that Harley fights rooms full of guys, but when Montoya shows up by herself and is drunk, Harley doesn't instantly win the fight. She actually goes through some trouble. If that doesn't make it apparent with what they are doing in this movie, then I don't know what will. And as for the characters in Suicide Squad, most of these villains are more higher profile, and the only two that stand out is obviously Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn and Will Smith as Deadshot. Now this is an example of how you race bend the character and it works. You get someone like Will Smith, and what results is a fun performance as Deadshot. But although Will Smith is fun to watch much as a bad guy, he doesn't go all the way. Deadshot needs to be more menacing than this, but he isn't. He would have at least maintained his evil status if he did end up killing Rick Flag at the end of the movie like he said he would, but the movie didn't do that. And the scene in the bar just adds to the problems. They're humanizing the characters too much. This particular scene in concept isn't a bad idea, but the stories they tell should have been more horrific and self-centered with an element of humanity. But they treat these guys' problems as if they were heroes with an element of villainy. I mean, Amanda Waller refers to these villains as the worst of the worst, but later on, what do we see?
I lost one family, I ain't gonna lose another one. Think it through.
That is not something we should be hearing from these villains, and the others shouldn't reciprocate. Thankfully, in Birds of Prey, we don't get lines like that, and Harley is just that, a villain. She actually leaves the Birds of Prey by the end of the movie and even tries to surrender the kid for her own survival at one point. So Birds of Prey actually got the villainous side down a lot better than Suicide Squad did. Speaking of Suicide Squad, it's quite ironic that Waller says,
I saved the best for last.
Because Enchantress is the one that people hated the most, despite the fact that this movie clearly thought she was going to be the highlight. What they should have done was make Joker the main villain. I mean, it's a no-brainer, but they instead got these two, which nobody asked for. Now, funnily enough, the director actually admitted that he should have made Joker the main villain, and normally I respect it when filmmakers acknowledge their mistakes, but in this case, I can't forgive him for that, because Joker should have been his first choice as villain in this movie. It was staring him right in the bloody face for crying out loud. You need to think really hard to come up with a villain like Enchantress instead of Joker. Speaking of which, let's talk about this Joker. The best way I can sum up Jared Leto's performance is that it felt like his acting was a combination of Jack Sparrow and Jim Carrey.
I think she is. The fire in my loins. The itch in my crotch. To this handsome hunka. You
don't want no beef.
You want no beef? You don't want no beef? You don't want no beef?
And the writing and dialogue they give him is terrible, and it's only made worse by his performance. Now, when I saw the theatrical release in the cinema, we had so little scenes with Jared Leto's Joker that I couldn't really make a judgment call on him. So I said he was good from what I saw, but that I needed to see more. But when the extended version released on Blu-ray, I saw this scene, and well...
I am not someone who is loved. I'm an idea. State of mind. I execute my will according to my plan, and you, doctor, don't hurt me. I'll be your friend.
This cleared away all my doubt. Jared Leto sucks as the Joker. He wasn't acting, he was just taking the piss, and he's one of the biggest laughingstocks I have seen in my entire life. Not only because of his horrible performance, but also because of his disgusting method acting antics. And as for this Joker's motivation, Joker goes out of his way to break Harley out of Arkham Asylum, and that's not what Joker does. In the animated series, Joker fails at a robbery and he fails at a getaway. So what does he do? He escapes himself, but leaves Harley to get sent to prison by Batman. He goes home and finds that a mob boss leaves him all of his money, and at this point, he thinks he's rich, and Harley thinks that he will pay to get her out of prison. But rather than rescue her, he puts an ad in the newspaper.
Joker seeks new hench girl?
That's what the relationship is like between Harley and Joker, and it's so interesting, and in cases like this, it's funny, and other times, it gets really dark.
You always take shots from folks who just don't get the joke. And don't call me Puddin'.
That's what works so well with their relationship, and it's an abusive relationship, but in Suicide Squad, he just tries to save her, and Joker would never do that. I honestly feel like this Joker is only here as a means to appeal to teenage girls who like the romantic idea that a bad boy is doing everything in his power to rescue his girlfriend. So yeah, they really butchered Joker in this. Thank God Joaquin Phoenix and Todd Phillips came in and did the Clown Prince of Crime justice. Or injustice, whichever term the Joker would prefer. And as for the final character in Suicide Squad, we have Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis. And she does a great job playing Amanda Waller. You really do buy that this is the character, so she is a great choice. But the thing this movie gets wrong about her are her intentions. They are all wrong. Amanda Waller doesn't hire villains to save the world. That's what we have superheroes for. She hires them so they can carry out corrupt missions that the superheroes would not do, such as breaking into Arkham and using Harley to get past the security, seeing as she used to be the psychiatrist at Arkham. There's a specific reason why she recruited Harley, whereas in Suicide Squad, she hires Harley because she wants her to save the world with a baseball bat. And this is what makes no sense. If she wants someone to save the world, then she can tip off Batman just like she tipped him off with Deadshot, and he'll save it. But no, she hired villains in order to save the world. What a load of nonsense. Also, Waller would not kill her crew of people. I mean, unless she's taking part in a bank robbery and wants to keep all the money for herself, there's no reason for this. But she does give a reason as to why she did this.
What? They weren't cleared for any of this,
I'm not judging.
You ain't judging, but I am. These type of corrupt people always hire people like this to help them out with all the technical work. You can find other ways to make them stay silent, but this just feels like they are trying really hard to make Amanda Waller seem evil. And it's not evil, it just makes her look stupid and wasteful. I mean, that's a complete waste of resources. And the rest of the villains on the team are there, and the actors are kind of entertaining, but they also have no real reason to be here. I mean, seriously, a guy with a boomerang is supposed to help save the world. A guy who climbs things, and a pacifist is also meant to save the world. Yeah, well chosen team there, Waller. The characters in Birds of Prey are fine. They're not in it much, but for what they are good. But they're not memorable fan favorites or anything. They're serviceable as side characters, and not much else. And although we have Harley in this movie, we also had Harley in Suicide Squad, and we also had Deadshot. So even though I'm not that fond of the rest of the characters in Suicide Squad, I would much rather watch a movie where the characters consist of Deadshot and Harley Quinn, and I had far more fun watching those two than I did the Birds of Prey. So the movie with the superior characters is Suicide Squad. Is there even a point in talking about the villains in Suicide Squad? Nobody came out liking these villains. One is a CGI mess, and the other is just a dancing embarrassment that people have made so many parodies of. They don't have any personality traits, they're just bent on world domination because they are evil, that's it. So, let's move on to the villains in Birds of Prey. Now, Zsasz in the comics and also in the Arkham games is a psychotic killer, and for every one of his victims, he cuts himself and keeps score of the people he murders on his body. And in this movie, they make him crazy, but in my opinion, not crazy enough. And they also make him gay for Black Mask. That's about it. I can say a lot about Zsasz in the comics and the Arkham games, but I really do have nothing to say about him in Birds of Prey. I thought he was incredibly forgettable, and what did make him memorable was how crazy and psychotic he is, but the movie doesn't play that up enough, and reducing his most memorable character trait does not do him any favors in this film. And then we have Ewan McGregor. Now, Ewan McGregor in this movie was my favorite character. He was very intimidating at times, and you could tell that he takes pleasure in watching people get hurt. And on top of that, you can just tell that the actor is having so much fun with this role. His best scene, and the one that made me laugh, is when he notices someone has a nose full of snot. That made me laugh. That was so good. Now, do you notice I've been calling him Ewan McGregor? And that's because he is not Black Mask. He is only Black Mask by name, but he is nothing like Black Mask in the comics, the animated shows and movies, or even the games for that matter. The closest he gets is that he wears his iconic mask and he is a mob boss. That's it. It feels like Warner Brothers don't even know what they have with Black Mask, so they're just brushing him off like he is nothing. But he is a very big villain that challenged Batman on several occasions, and Warner needs to treat him with more respect. I mean, I would accept that this is who he is if this is an origin for his character, and once he got his mask burned into his face, then he becomes the Black Mask we know and love. But no, they just kill him off in an embarrassing and disrespectful way. And now, Black Mask, a character that I love from the comics, is just going to be looked at as a joke in the movie side of DC. I really can't believe they treated his character like this, and I am really mad about that. And it definitely made the movie lose a point from me. If you're going to treat his character like a nobody, then you might as well have chosen a nobody villain. You don't choose someone like Black Mask to play a nobody. Seriously, you could have chosen anyone to play this kind of character. Why did you choose Black Mask? Seriously. I am positive that Margot Robbie and the people that worked on this movie have absolutely no idea who the hell Black Mask even is. They did nothing to make him the well-renowned character that he is, and it was really frustrating. So the movie with a superior villain, I guess, is Birds of Prey. The representation of Black Mask sucks and doesn't resemble the character at all. but he was a hell of a lot more entertaining to watch than Enchantress and CG Scorpion King right here. So yeah, not much of a compliment, but the movie with the superior villain is Birds of Prey. And by the way, it's Sionis, not Sionis, Roman Sionis. I mean, come on, the last thing you need to do is take name pronunciation tips from The Last Airbender.
Are you the Avatar Ong?
Now the action in both of these movies differ in the fact that all the people they fight in Birds of Prey are actual people, and in Suicide Squad they are, well, this. Why do the minions look like the clickers from The Last of Us? You'd think they would take the form of humans like the two evil cosplayers, but no. Now the only reason they look like ash monsters is because the movie needs to maintain its PG-13 rating somehow. But that's no excuse. They still could have easily faced off against enemies that were more human while still maintaining the PG-13 rating. But these things that turn to ash is just so in your face with this attempt at being PG-13 that it actually bothers you when you're watching the action scenes. All in all, I think the action in Suicide Squad is just okay. It lacks any real stakes, and it seems so safe at the same time. As for the action in Birds of Prey, the first big advantage it has over Suicide Squad is that we actually see people get the crap beaten out of them, and they're not crumbly mutants or whatever the hell these things were. And it's important to note that some of the action scenes in Birds of Prey got reshoots, and they actually brought in the director for the John Wick movies to do them. And these stick out like a sore thumb, because there are some action scenes in this movie that are so well done. But then there are other action scenes that are amateur in comparison. Now the good action scenes were fast paced, they had nice choreography, they were edited well, and it was just a blast to watch. There was one scene in particular where Harley breaks a guy's knees. It was awesome. I just wish there were more brutal attacks like that, because a lot of the other attacks just resulted in some CGI blood sprays, and they're poorly calculated. But I still appreciated the R-rated action, and it was surprisingly more violent than Joker. Yet the media and critics don't seem to be complaining about this film. And no, I wouldn't say the action is the female equivalent to John Wick. I don't know how those comparisons are even being put out there. The action scenes are nowhere near the same level of skill and entertainment that John Wick provides. Now, there are a lot of other problems with the action in this movie too. First off, there's a prison break fight scene where Harley's fighting against cops and she uses non-lethal rounds. The cops, on the other hand, during this scene have real guns, but 99% of them don't even think to use them, and they put their hands up like, I give up, I give up. And if that wasn't bad enough, later on in this same action scene, Harley beats a whole room full of prisoners and none of them all try to dogpile on her. They very stupidly just fight her one at a time. They needed to make the fight scene more chaotic because it was just way too clean of a fight, and I couldn't get into it for those reasons. And I really didn't enjoy the action scene in the funhouse. It was way too cartoony and goofy to me, and I found it stupid. The action scenes up till this point felt like they struck the right balance between cartoon and live action, but the funhouse is where things went way too far, and there were points where I was thinking, what the hell am I watching right now? This is rated R, right? Because the goofiness is completely overshadowing the adult nature of the movie. So yeah, the action is really hit and miss in Birds of Prey. The ones that were reshot under the supervision of the John Wick director were great, and I hardly have any problems with them. It's just the rest of the action scenes that proved very problematic to me. They just felt like they were taken from a completely different movie, one that was nowhere near as competent with its filmmaking. But one thing is for sure, all of the action scenes in Birds of Prey are far better than all of the action scenes in Suicide Squad. And that's mainly because the action in Suicide Squad has no real sense of impact whenever the characters strike. The bad guys just crumble and turn to ash. That's not fun or satisfying to see. In Birds of Prey, however, people get injured, they bleed, and the strikes carry a much needed weight and impact. Most of the time. So yeah, although the action in Birds of Prey is superior to Suicide Squad, I still have a lot of problems with them. I mean, she takes out a room full of guys, but then a drunk Montoya shows up and Harley is actually struggling. That was also a stupid fight. So yeah, it has problems, but there's no denying. The movie with the superior action is Birds of Prey. So when you get down to it, both of these movies are underwhelming but in different ways, and they both seem to be copying different Marvel properties. With Suicide Squad, they are obviously trying to copy the goofiness and tone of Guardians of the Galaxy, and with Birds of Prey, like I said earlier, this movie is trying to take a lot of cues from Deadpool, and although it kind of lends itself decently to the character of Harley Quinn, the problem is that the movie is nowhere near as funny as Deadpool. As a matter of fact, I remember laughing so much at both Deadpool movies, but in Birds of Prey, I wasn't laughing as much as I was chuckling. I had much bigger laughs in Shazam and even Aquaman, and Aquaman is not even a comedy, so the writing was very mediocre in this movie and it needed to be so much better. The movie is fun to watch once, but I don't see myself watching it again. I definitely think it's the weakest of the DC movies to come out lately. Aquaman, Shazam, and Joker are so much better than this. I have rewatched them so many times, but I can't see myself watching Birds of Prey again. The movie is very in one ear, out the other. When it finished, Aquaman left an impression on me, Shazam left an impression on me, and Joker definitely left an impression on me. Birds of Prey just didn't. I just felt empty when I saw it. I wanted to be able to latch onto something, but I couldn't. I latched on to whatever performance Ewan McGregor was doing as he was having an absolute ball with this role, but then he dies and I know I'm not going to see him again. I cannot stress enough how the downright mishandling of Black Mask really made me feel annoyed when I left the movie theater. There is also a scene in this film where Harley says to Black Mask, "You're not as complicated as you think." And I remember thinking to myself, he actually is, but in this movie, he isn't, because the entire crew of women that are behind the production and story of this movie did absolutely nothing to make him that way. And they have an R rating. They could have made him the ruthless mob boss that he is in the comics, but they just try their best to make him a petty misogynist. There's a scene where he tells a woman to dance on the table and get undressed. Now you think that something is gonna happen here, but nothing does. The scene just abruptly cuts away. This scene could have been super intense, but it was just anticlimactic and it didn't take advantage of the R rating. If you took the scene out of the movie, it would have made no difference to the film. The one thing I can say in both of these movies' defense is that they are watchable. I have sat through movies that are far more boring to watch, and I would rather watch these again than some of those. With Birds of Prey, the scenes with Harley Quinn are fun to watch, and with Suicide Squad, there are good things scattered around in the movie, mainly when it involves Deadshot and Harley. Besides that though, everything else in this film is pretty bad, and the movie just has this very dull look to it. You can make movies that are visually dark and grim and still come out looking good in the end, but this isn't one of them. What really puts things into perspective though when you rewatch Suicide Squad now is that a lot of the stuff that did exist in this universe no longer applies anymore. Jared Leto's Joker is not around anymore, Ben Affleck's Batman isn't around anymore, Henry Cavill's Superman might or might not be around if the recent reports are to be true, so this movie really does suffer even more now that we don't know what the state of the universe is. Upon reflection, I also think the R rating could have been taken advantage of a lot more, because unlike the other R-rated comic book movies, when I look at Birds of Prey, I do think that the R rating wasn't pushed as far as it could have been. The action could have been more graphic, and Harley should have used real guns on the cops rather than non-lethal rounds. That felt very PG-13 to me, and it was inaccurate to the character of Harley Quinn. It's time for the scores. Suicide Squad gets a 3 out of 10, and Birds of Prey gets a 4. I originally gave Birds of Prey a 5, saying it was the very definition of okay, but upon further reflection, the movie really is forgettable, and I came away feeling more and more unenthusiastic about it. The best parts of Birds of Prey are the action scenes that were worked on by the director of the John Wick movies. They are the only scenes that I can see myself potentially rewatching in this movie, and Suicide Squad got a 3 because, well, do I really need to explain why? It had such a great property to work with and it didn't live up to it. If you want to know what an excellent Suicide Squad movie could have been like, then watch Batman: Assault on Arkham. This movie takes place loosely in the same world as the Arkham games, and it shows you what Suicide Squad could have done with its story, its characters, and how Batman could have played a true part in the narrative. But instead, it went with the most uninteresting of storytelling techniques and only used Batman so they could advertise him in the marketing, rather than fully take advantage of him in the movie. Both of these films are not far off from each other in terms of quality, and I can only hope that James Gunn's Suicide Squad will treat this property right and end up being a much better movie than these two. So, that's it for another Versus video. If you guys liked it, please give the video a thumbs up as it really does help, and don't forget to click that subscribe button and the bell to stay up to date with all of my future videos. Also, feel free to donate $1 to my Patreon and you will gain access to my podcasts where I talk about news regarding movies, review episodes of TV shows that I am watching, and also reviews of movies. Thanks very much as always for watching, guys. I always appreciate it, and I will see all of you next time. Take care.